All right, going to call the regular meeting of council to order for Monday, January 6th, 2025. Take approval of the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
That the January 6th, 2025 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes for December 16th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes. Recommendation, please. Councilor Noxana.
That the December 16th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Julik. Any errors or omissions from council? Staff?
No.
All in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes, council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Recommendation, please. Councilor Julik.
That all items in the January 6, 2025 consent agenda be moved for information.
Seconder. Councilor Hoffman. All in favor? Carried. Are there any items council would like to bring forward for discussion? Okay. Moving on under new business, 2025 Federation of Canadian Municipalities Annual Conference and Trade Show. Report dated January 6, 2025 from the Executive Assistant to the CAO regarding the 2025 FCM Annual Conference and Trade Show attendance authorization. Is there anybody from council who would like to attend the FCM? Councilor Noxana?
Because we're all jumping to go, I would attend on our behalf if needed.
Okay. Councilor Julik?
To echo Councillor Noxana, I would also attend if needed.
Okay. Councilor Dussault?
I also echo, so yeah, it'd be a good time with the three of us.
Okay. I'll put the following recommendation that the following members of council be authorized to attend the 2025 Federation of Canadian Municipalities Annual Conference and Trade Show with the expenses coming from the council travel budget for Councillor Noxana, Councillor Julik, and Councillor Dussault. Take a seconder. Councilor Norbury, discussion. I just appreciate council coming forward. I didn't want to attend this year. I was actually had some other stuff up. So if nobody else could go, I would move my schedule. But since we have people that are willing to attend, it works out perfectly. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, I guess just to Ms. Scott, I know it is in our policy that it's the mayor and up to 2 councillors, which would be 3 elected officials. Should make a difference within our policy.
That's correct.
Perfect. Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, amended budget calendar for 2025. Report dated January 6, 2025 from the Chief Finance Officer regarding the amendment to the budget calendar. Recommendation from council. Councilor Norbury.
That council approves the amended 2025 budget calendar.
Seconder, Councilor Julik. Discussion. I guess my question, I was in and seen the CEO in regards to the agenda review. I just want to make sure that we're holding these timelines. As I know we've had to cancel one and push back a bit. I just want to make sure this is going to work from staff side as well.
We believe that these dates are a lot more achievable for getting council the information they need. So yes, we intend to follow these dates.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, call the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Flatbed Creek Campground Agreement, report dated January 6, 2025 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the Flatbed Creek Campground Agreement. Recommendation, Councillor Noxana.
That staff be directed to draft a lease agreement with the Tumbler Ridge Lions Club for the Flatbed Creek Campground. Oh my God.
Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion. Councillor Julik.
This is a tough one for me. I came in and I talked to Ms. Scott on the pros and cons, and I have to say, leaving, and even still, I haven't made a final decision in my mind. I guess I was hoping that there would be some other feedback from council that might help me sway one way or the other. I think where I got to when I was doing my own while I was thinking about it is really what is our goal with the campground? And I think that that can help guide us get to where a lease agreement or an operating agreement would be the better choice. Like, is our goal to provide a campground for tourism? Is our goal to increase our revenue and have revenue to offset our expenses for the municipality? And so I think unless I know what the answer to that is, that makes a bit of a difference for me. I'm also concerned about some of the hiccups we've maybe had with the Lions Campground with the organization in our last year in that current operating agreement. I also have some concerns around being cost neutral, whether it's with the campground. Again, I think that goes back to what's our goal with the campground. Is it as a tourism tool, or is it as to offset costs of the municipality? Because I think unless we make those decisions, I don't know that we can make a real decision when it comes to whether an operating agreement or a lease is the way to go. So I have a few concerns with the lease, the fact that they can set their own rates. I have some concern about them setting their own rules when we saw some of that happen last year. The different, like the online booking with the non-refundable reservations, just a few of those things that as a lease agreement we would have no control over. The opposite side of that is having the operating agreement, which I can see would take a lot of time, because even though those concerns were taken to the Lions Club, I'm not sure that the Lions Club took them as a serious thing for us as the district wanting them corrected. So I'd like to hear what other folks have to say at this point, because I can't say as I'm completely one way or the other. I definitely am leaning.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Far be it from you to try to convince Councillor Julick of anything, but in the end, I was actually really happy to see this as a solution. We've had a number of discussions of the goings-on and who's responsible and what should we do, and I think this basically gives a organization that has shown generally responsibility towards the town, and the town has shown support for them, and as a solution for the next however long the terms of the agreement are, that this makes a really good, frankly, test case for, is this a model that we can use for other properties around town? And I can't think of a group that I would rather start with than the Lions Club on one thing, especially when there are these sorts of how much are we in and how much control do they have, that this is a solution brought forward by staff that allows us to take a step back and let somebody else really manage this property. I believe they understand that they can't set indefinitely high rates. They have competition around. They'll set rates that are reasonable for them, and they'll have an operating budget that they're going to run and use to operate this asset. So I'm actually looking forward to see if this is a successful model that we may be able to use. I don't think this is appropriate for anything by any stretch of the imagination, but in this case, I'm rather hopeful that this solves a bunch of the stuff that we spent time on that we frankly didn't really need to spend a whole lot of time on if this was in place. So that's where I'm at with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kukelka. You know, I'm on board with staff's recommendations. You know, they made a lot of sense in the report. I reached out to the Lions Club. This is what they want. One of the, you know, Councillor Julick commented about a bunch of the issues of friction with their operating of the campground. If we give them the lease, they can have that freedom to operate. And I think that's what they want, and they're showing that through their actions last year. They're showing that they're willing to invest their own time and effort in obtaining grants, getting summer students down there to still offer this great service. I think with the cost, I believe we got a report last year that it cost us, you know, $11,000 to run last year, you know, to put in down there. Whereas this brings us to neutral. It's great. We can be hands off. Love it. Love it when we can be hands off. We just got to do our winterizing and stuff like that. You know, and Councillor Hoffman said it, but I'll say it as well. I mean, they've done a great job down there for a long time. Why not give them a chance? See how it goes. Thanks.
Thanks. Councilor Noxana and myself.
Thank you. I'm also in favor of the motion on the floor. I think we can word this lease agreement in ways like we do with restaurants we own. These are leased to proponents. We can have terms there for the length of the lease, what we'd like to see for hours open, safety. It takes a lot of the cost off of us. And I understand the concern about the Lions being able to set their own rates, but they need to make some money too. If the campground is sitting empty because their rates are too high, they'll lower them. It's putting the control to them, but they're going to have to be responsible with that control. And I think that they have operated for so long here in town that it makes sense for me to offer them this contract as a lease.
Thanks. I got myself and then Councillor So I think I have some of the same kind of concerns as Councillor Julik. I've had quite a good conversation with our CAO in regards to it. I mean, it's really hard when we don't see what the draft lease agreement looks like to kind of see what's in there to me to protect the community, protect the asset. Because it is still owned by the DTR, it would still be under the DTR, even though it's leased, just like any other things like restaurants were mentioned and such. I think it is a little bit different than a restaurant, and we had that conversation with Ms. Scott, and I have some, you know, until I can see a draft agreement to see kind of what we're putting in there from the DTR side for the campground, because at this time, we've only ever done the operational leases through the Monkman RV Park and the Lions Campground. So until I can actually see it and see where that there is some protection for the taxpayer-owned asset, you know, like I look at picnic tables. So when they become unrepairable, whose cost is that? So we're saying that this here puts us revenue neutral. Whose tables are they, Ms. Scott? Who would buy new ones if in 2 years they're damaged past repair?
In the lease agreement, we would expect that the Lions would maintain, when they got to the point where they aged out, I mean, those are things that we can include in the lease agreement, but I would think that would be something that the district would replace. Same if there was something major happened to some of the other infrastructure. If something major happened to the shower building, it would still be our asset that we would replace.
Okay. And I mean, and I appreciate that. And I mean, it was the same kind of conversation I had with Ms. Scott. And, you know, I mean, until a person sees it, to see actually what's in there that kind of protects us. Like, you know, Councilor Norbury, you throw out that it cost us $11,000 in a paperwork that we've seen that came from finance. But we've never seen what that is. The previous, I think it was in 2022, it cost the district $18,000. It's about 19 grand. Was that for new picnic? I don't know. We never got all that information back to see where those costs actually were made up of. So, I mean, it's not that I don't disagree that we need to try different avenues and look at different ways, but in the same aspect, I look at it again, that to me, we need to make sure we're protecting something that is a capital of the DTRs. It's not that the Lions Club has done a bad job. I mean, I think they've done a great job running the campground for, I think it's since 2014 or 2012 or something. It's been a long time. They installed a new playground. It was done by donations and such like that. That's not the concern there. It's what about all the other capital assets there, whether that's the sandy dumps, shower facility was just mentioned. There's the shack at the back, picnic tables. Like, to me, there's a lot. I mean, until I see an agreement, I'm not saying I would be for or against it. And I guess it's tough when you're trying to give that direction to staff to start that process. So let us as council could have a look at it to see if that is the way we want to go or not want to go. So yeah, I had the same kind of questions that Councillor Julik did. We, you know, I've beat this around quite a bit, read through it lots. That'd be my concern, is that all that capital that we have down there, and if all of a sudden in 3 years, I hear that the Lions Club would have to make sure they repair and stuff like that. But what happens if they don't? And all of a sudden we get a bill that's $15,000 with no income for it. Where to me, when we look at a split previously, I don't think the split was set fairly maybe for the municipality side of it, that we weren't recouping some of the other costs that we were doing down there because of the split. That's why there was a cost to the taxpayers to run it. But those would be my comments. That's my concern. I think I kind of have the same kind of questions or concerns that Councillor Julich does. Councillor Dussault?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I thought I knew which way I was going to go on this, but after listening to Mayor Kakauka's information, I'm wondering if we can't defer this until we actually have a lease agreement in front of us before we make a decision on this.
Yeah, I think this here, instead of deferring it, it's actually looking to give staff direction to draft a lease agreement. My understanding, I mean, I'll ask Ms. Scott, but to me, if we've seen the lease agreement, and I think if council didn't, that wasn't the way, maybe it wasn't what we all thought it was gonna be like, and it's not approved, we're just looking at doing one. But Ms. Scott, is that not correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So if council gave direction to staff to go ahead and draft the lease agreement, it would still come back to council to review and approve. And if there were changes that council wanted to make to that lease agreement, we still could at that time.
No, that's good. I think where we were at, yeah, never mind.
Perfect. I got Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You know, some of the comments about, your comments about the replacement of picnic tables and smaller assets like that, what would be the current structure for replacing those assets? Would that be on us currently versus the Lions Club? And then in a current lease agreement, like a new lease agreement, we can outline those details. But I guess my question is, what is it now? Right? Are we going to be adding a burden upon us or taking one off? Because with a lease agreement, we could outline specifics that we're looking for.
And I don't disagree, and that's what I said, like, until you see the draft. At this point, I mean, staff will answer, but right now, if picnic tables are needed, it's purchased by the municipality, but the municipality also goes down and does the repair. I know that they have removed them and taken them and replaced all the wood. Ms. Scott?
Yes, that's correct.
So then if we draft a lease agreement that we keep that there, then nothing's changed. We're not gaining any liability, we're just continuing it. If we want to negotiate with the Lions about something different, that's an option. That could be one less thing we have to worry about. But yeah, I think it's still a good opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman and Councillor Julich.
Thank you, Mayor. And I totally respect the points that you're bringing up, but without a lease agreement, you don't have an answer to those questions, which is why we need to draft a lease agreement. Like, I don't think there's, from what you were saying, it sounds like you want to see a lease agreement, not putting words in your mouth. So that's where I'm at as well. I mean, there could be something in there that the Lions Club insisted on that just doesn't work in a lease agreement to our mind, and we still have an opportunity to review that. So that's, I don't know what the standards are. Like, I don't know if picnic tables are a standard item in a lease agreement, or if they're considered small enough assets that the operator takes care of them. But your larger points, if something happens to one of the large structures, lease agreement or operating agreement, we're still liable. That, to my mind, that's not what's changing here. The thing that's changing is, do we trust this organization to maintain this asset to at least the same standard as would be under an operating agreement? And for that, I would answer yes, given the track record of this organization with that asset. So let's see what the staff in the Lions Club comes up with. I'll be inclined to say yes to whatever the lease agreement is. That's where my position is right now, but I still want to see it. Yeah. So that's, as I said also, I think that this, as a potential for other assets, for other organizations, might be a way to take a lot of burden off of the town and our assets that are more expensive than average to operate and use them elsewhere. So that's what I'm really looking forward to here. So I would like to see this go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Julich and then Councillor Dussault.
I guess I'm a little disappointed. I didn't hear from anybody what their thoughts were of the purpose of the campground, if it's a tourism or if it's a revenue, because I think those are the places for me that make the difference in making my decision. If our goal is to keep it as a tourism attraction of sorts, I think that plays a difference for me whether or not it should be a lease agreement or an operating agreement. A lease agreement gives us absolutely no control over what it looks like down there. Last year, the Lions campground, or the Lions group, put up a sign that said family camping. And the only reason it come down, to my guess, would be because we said it had to, and because they had an agreement with us as such. So if the Lions decided again to make it only a family camping situation, that to me, when we only have 2 campgrounds in the area specific for camping in the area, like close to Tumbler Ridge, that's a concern of mine when it comes to the lease agreement. I'm not saying that that's what would happen. I'm saying that looking at past history, this is what has happened. And how do we have control over that? We had some concerns over the reservation system and somebody not getting their money back when they canceled their reservation. Those would be things that we would no longer have control over. So for me, that again comes to the part of what is our goal? Is it because we want to attract and continue to build our tourism inventory, or is it to be revenue neutral, which the proposed report in here says that we would just only charge them what our costs were, which would mean we would have no revenue whatsoever, which is better than the costs that we've had versus any revenue in the past. I absolutely agree. Except I think that we as a council have to decide what that looks like going forward for all of our things. We have a lot of property that we either lease, we have something with the WNMS coming up, they possibly a lease or an operating agreement. You know what I mean? Like, so there's those pieces of the pie to me that we need to consider going forward, because while my biggest reason for going with a lease would be to take burden off of staff, if we continue to have all of these different assets of the district being run at a different level or a different way, some are agreements, some are fee for service, some are like, if we're doing them all different, that's just as much burden on the staff. So again, for me, what is our goal? Is it to continue to build our tourism assets, or is it to make money, or is it to support nonprofits? Because to me, standing right now, as the report sits, we would be supporting a nonprofit. We wouldn't be supporting the taxpayers beyond that. We wouldn't have any costs. That would be the goal. But we wouldn't necessarily be supporting the tourism sector because we're giving up control of that property to a group that isn't tourism focused. And I'm not saying that in a good way or a bad way. It just is. Their focus is completely different. So I'm ready to have a lease come forward, but at the same time, I'm wondering, does that make sense? Like, so we're telling staff, go ahead with the lease, but we're not promising that that's the way we're going to go. And they've already been working since April trying to get this done and have come to, like, so this hasn't just been staff putting this off. This is our staff working with them and not being able to come to an agreement is the way I understand it. And so us telling them to go forward, if we say to go forward with a lease and then we're not happy with the lease, then we're going to have them go back and do an operating agreement. So to me, I think that we need to still make a decision here tonight. Is this because we're supporting nonprofit? Is this because we're going to support tourism, or we want money, period?
Before I go to Councilor, so I'm just going to answer a couple of questions. I don't know if it should be staff that answers them. To me, I believe my understanding of it is it's a draft lease. So to me, it's not about, I know you use the word control. I highlighted it a couple of times. To me, it's not about that we want to control the organization or people. To me, we can put, and it sounds like, and you know, I've listened to it. I understand that this is a draft, and to me, to make a change from an operating to a lease agreement, so an operating agreement or a lease agreement, you know, this is an idea that came from, I believe, a meeting that staff had with Lions Club. So, you know, they've been having a couple of meetings, and I think this might be something to look at. And it sounds like to me that we can put trigger points in there that, you know, there's certain stipulations that have to be met within the lease agreement. Could be wrong, but that's my understanding from the CAO. When it comes to whether are we looking to do tourism, or is this for revenue for a non-for-profit, I believe the Lions Club, and I am a Lions member. I don't sit on the board, but I've been a Lions member for 17 years, I believe. To me, they're definitely about people visiting our community. That's why they took over the campground. That is my full belief, even in regards to it at our meetings. It's about the community, so I do believe that. But when it comes to what's the difference, well, right now, it costs our taxpayers money. As the split was in the agreement previously was not a good enough, or not a big enough split that should have been, and it was never relooked at, because it was supposed to be cost neutral then. and it hasn't been. I mean, I don't understand when we talked, and, you know, no disrespect to Council Norbury, when we're throwing 11K or 18K, or I think there was 1 year it was 23. We don't have the information to even back up those numbers. We don't have that to know what that was. Was that some bank repair? Was that I don't know. I mean, for me to say that they took a deficit, or the district took a deficit down the flatbed campground for 23K, first show me where that 23K is made of. It might not even be at the campground, it might have been GL'd out wrong. Not saying it was, but it could have been. So to me, that's what I think is, you know, I understand you're trying to look for, but to me, with staff coming forward saying, here's another option, should we look at this? It's a draft. We get to go through the draft, we can add things, or geez, maybe this lease option isn't the right thing at that meeting. I think, no, it's not a done deal. Just because council decides to go forward with asking staff to proceed with this. And I'll be honest, staff has not been working on this since April. Ms. Scott took this over after she started. And it's been since the fall, not even when she first got here. So, Councilor Dussault?
Yeah, listening to everything. I don't know, let's go ahead and do the draft agreement. I mean, the draft lease. Whatever we want to change in it, we can change in it. But if we don't give this organization a chance, and yes, they are big for tourism, that I can say. They want people to come visit. We want to bring people in. And every lease agreement is different. They're not all the same. We can't incorporate a restaurant agreement to be the same as a campground agreement. Those are two different businesses. So I think we really should give them a chance on this. Let's bring a lease agreement in, we can go over it, and if there's things we want to change, then we change. And if, you know, does it have to be for 3 years? I don't know. Can we make it shorter? I don't know. Like, there has to be some options in there, so.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman and Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Julik brought up a couple of things for me. One is that I would like to see a multi-year options of what council may or may not be comfortable with. And of course, that can be negotiated as part of the lease, but whether that's a 5-year, a 3-year, 2-year, whatever it is, but I think that needs to be a consideration because it might impact the outcome when it does come to council. Not going to make a motion on that, just going to put it out there for staff to consider. One thing it did make me think of is one of the concerns, I'm going around here so you can tell me if I'm way off, the campground's being used as sort of a temporary residential option for, say, somebody that would be transitory nature for working out here. Is that sort of teasing out when you're talking about tourism versus or not? Because I could see that being a concern and something that we may want to consider incorporating in the lease of a maximum amount for a particular visit or something like that, so it's not, doesn't become that, or because that this tourism versus not. I'm sorry, I'll tell you why I was confused. If they want to go for a 90% occupancy with a price X, or they want to take $10 off and they want to have 100%, I don't think that makes enough of the difference in a course of a year for us to really worry about how much tourism is being drawn or how many people are being drawn in. But if we're talking more on the who is camping here and what sort of feel on the tourism front that we're going for, I could totally see that and that being a limiting thing in the lease. So now I'll put it back to you to respond. Thank you.
I don't, like, I think for me, when I say about, it was heartening to hear everybody say they're definitely tourism related, or they're definitely tourism oriented, and I appreciate that. My concern is, or what I was actually trying to get at, is if the goal is to continue on with the way we're doing things tourism based, like, so if you think about the money that has been spent in the community on the signage, for example. Like, we have a very specific tourism plan that was started. And so for me, it's about that. If we lease that campground, whether it was to the Lions or anybody else, we then have less say, because I appreciate the mayor's response to me using the word control, because that's not it's about we have less say, we have less of a voice. Once we hand that over to them as a lease, that's it. Like, that's the benefit from what I'm hearing from you, Councillor Noxana and Councillor Norbury, is the positive side for you guys is that we've given this, like, so then this will be no longer the staffs to worry about for the most part, right? Like, and so that's the big bonus for you guys. For me, that's a mark against is all. And I think that no matter how it sits now, like when I say about family camping only, it's about will their operations align with what the district is looking at for tourism? And they don't have to. Like, we have no input into that unless it's via, partially with the lease. What happens if we do a tourism something or other in the meantime? I'm not saying that the lines wouldn't work with us. The lines are also run by their volunteer group. So those personalities can change whenever, if ever, right? Like, so there's that aspect of it too. Same as us sitting up here. So that's where I just do not have certainty in moving forward with this. It has nothing to do with the organization or anything else. It has to do for us, for me, part of it is the consistency in which we do this stuff within our community. Yes, I'm not expecting, to Councillor Dussault's point, I'm not expecting that our restaurant lease will look the same as our campground lease, but we have an operating agreement at Monkman. I'm not sure what we have for an agreement for the golf course. And then we have, like for the golf course camping, we have a lease agreement on the kitchen at the golf course. What do we have at the community center? Like, it's that stuff to me, there's no consistency within that. So I get that this is one piece, but I think that that's the whole big picture that we need to look at too. Like, and because otherwise, if we don't have somebody, as we've seen this last while, as we have things brought to us, things that have slipped through the cracks with administration for whatever reason, and that's not about pointing fingers, but it slipped through the cracks. And so if we're gonna do something, let's make sure it's to support the staff and the district and the taxpayers. Because bottom line, our job is to make sure the water gets turned on and the sewer still works, right? And so, yes, I don't know. It just doesn't give me a lot of certainty at this point to do one or the other. And so that's my struggle tonight.
So just on that, the golf course is run by the municipality. The campground is run by the municipality. Do you have a follow-up, Councillor?
No, I was just trying to center on what the perceived issue is, and with all due respect, I don't see one that really is going to change your mind today anyways. So whether you support it, I mean, obviously up to you, but that's just it. My mind hasn't been changed. I see potential here, and I'd like us to move forward with it. So I'm done. I'm not going to talk on the subject anymore. Thank you.
Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Clickash.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You know, some of the comments that are brought up, tourism, having an open campground run by an excellent organization that has a proven track record, it's good for tourism. You know, when it comes to funding, let's be honest, every dollar the Lions Club makes goes into the community. One hot dog at a time. No, but in a lot of other ways too, right? Like I've seen, like they bought, you know, a disabled child a wheelchair, right? Like these organizations are vital to some people who don't have opportunities to access funding for things. They're a very philanthropic organization, and every dollar they make goes back to the community. It's not going to someone's pocket. It's not being privately run, you know. And like this is a way for us to invest in our community as well, allowing them to earn this funding, and they're going to earn it, you know. And they have done a great job. I think that plays a really big part in this. And yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clickash.
Yes, we're talking about 5 or 6 different businesses, and they're not all going to be run the same. And the big thing here is, like, if you look at the golf course, you got 8 spots for RV. They don't even have water out there. That it's only electricity that they have. It's a minimal place. That's going to be run differently than down at the flatbed, and I think the Lions have done a fantastic job with the flatbed. They've been down there ever since I can remember, And I dealt with them a lot at the time when I was working for the town. And they're still doing a good job. Like, who do we expect to, say, fix something down there, like when the water line froze up? That's not their responsibility to fix that. It's our responsibility. There's always going to be responsibilities for the town to be involved there. So it doesn't matter what kind of a contract you write with them, we're going to be involved one way or another. So I think the Lions have done a fantastic job. They're continuing to put things forward, and I think they do have some initiative to see that there's tourism in this town. And so I really think that we should just go for them, for the Lions, and let them operate this, and we'll have to pick up the pieces that break, and that's the way it's going to be. It's always been that way, and it'll never change.
You're all good?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, got myself and then Councillor Julik. Just make a couple comments. There's a couple comments made by other council about some of the money they give back to the community and such. They are an organization that actually was able to get some funding through the PRRD. One of a few in our community that have seen funds. So, they are hitting the pavement, trying to find some funds to do upgrades and stuff like that. And same as South Mackenzie Trust, they received some funds from. So, it's not like they're just doing a thing. So, again, I'll say it again, I have some of the same concerns Councillor Gillick does, but to me, to be able to weed those out is seeing what comes forward in a lease agreement. When I had my conversation with Ms. Scott, this is something that, I think we got to also give a fair shake here to staff coming up with different ideas and stuff like that. And we're going to see different things come across our desk is my hopes. And this is an opportunity to have a look at it and see, and it's a draft. So if there's certain things that maybe we want to see added, maybe they can't be added because that's not something that we should be having put in there and stuff like that. But that'll be a response from our CEO when the draft was to come forward. But when we say that, things aren't here and this one's at this agreement, those all could change over the time that it comes forward to the new CAO as she uses her expertise in looking at different avenues of making the organization run. So I just, I'm obviously in favor of the draft lease agreement so I can see it. So I'm just trying to, make sure that people understand where we're all coming from and going from there. Okay, Councillor Julik, and then I'm calling the question.
I guess my next question would be then, because I can see that the tide is definitely turning towards the lease agreement, and I get that the draft would come forward. My question then is, are we content with a net zero lease? Because that's what's being proposed. Is that what we want the CAO to go and negotiate? That we are not going to make money on the campground, that it is just going to be there as a moneymaker for a nonprofit?
Yeah, I'll let Ms. Scott answer, but we've never made money off campgrounds. It costs the taxpayers money. Ms. Scott?
The negotiations we've had so far would be that it would be a net zero. If council wanted it to go a different direction, we can bring that back to the Lions Club for further discussion. And I can't speak for the Lions Club, but obviously, the more revenue that they can get from it, like we've already said, does go back to the community. So their preference would be for it to be net zero, for sure. And those are the discussions we've had. But if council wants to see that go a different direction, we can bring that back to them and propose it.
Follow up?
So sometimes I feel like I'm just being ornery, and this is not about being ornery. This is asking the questions if I was sitting down in the gallery. So yes, the Lions give back to the community. They don't give back to everybody, but the taxpayers, all the taxpayers pay. So that's just my thought. And I'm seeing questioning looks in people's eyes. So my point is okay, so not everybody uses the Lions campground. not everybody is on the receiving end of the Lions nonprofit organization of their good deeds. And don't get me wrong, I think that they're amazing. And I feel like sometimes that's what happens in this room, is that if I say one thing, not if I say, that if you say the Lions don't do this, that it's a shot against the Lions, and it's not. Let me be very clear. I think that they're an amazing organization. And their volunteers are great. What I'm bringing forward is, again, about if we're okay with net zero. This is something that, because maybe we're net zero for the year, but we're gonna have ongoing costs to the capital side of things that we aren't going to be able to charge back to the leaseholders. So it's like the golf carts. Yeah, but we get revenue on the golf carts. If we don't make revenue on the campground, when we have to make capital changes out there, that's coming out of taxpayers' pockets.
Yep, don't disagree with you, but again, I don't think, Ms. Scott, can you tell me when the Lions Campground, since the Lions have taken it over in 2011, when it was cost neutral?
I can only tell you that in the last 5 years, it has not been.
Thank you. So like that's why I'm willing to see this agreement. Because there's, you know, just because we're asking cost neutral, it doesn't mean that once we see it, they can't say, no, we need to have this. Like, to me, when we say that things, like I look at the last big donation the Lions Club did, $45,000 to the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School for laptops. Pretty much touches just about every taxpayer in this community. Grandkids, relatives, just because you don't have children. I don't have any children that go to the high school, but I definitely have neighbors' children that go to the high school. I've definitely supported it. Okay, going to call the question, and the motion on the floor is that staff be directed to draft a lease agreement with the Tumbler Ridge Lions Club for the Flatbed Creek Campground. Tongue twister. I call the question, all in favor? Carried. Sub-regional agreement for building inspection services. Report dated January 6, 2025 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding sub-regional agreement for building inspection services. Recommendation, Councilor Noxena.
That the District of Tumbler Ridge enter into an agreement with the Peace River Regional District to provide building and plumbing inspection services, and that the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign this agreement.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. Discussion. Councilor Gillett.
Looking over the report and all of the stuff in there, I am going to hazard a guess that this is much less expensive than if we had somebody hired directly from the District of Tumbler Ridge. All right.
So, I mean, I'll let staff answer. I don't want to just say, yep, and everybody nods. So I know previously, like when it came to building inspectors, when our previous building inspector decided to retire, the district could not find a building inspector. So we ended up sharing one with the regional district. There's multiple communities that do share the building inspectors with the PRRD because there's not enough of them to be found. They are very, very hard to find, and I would think it's the same way this way. Ms. Scott?
It's correct that building inspectors are hard to find. If we were able to find one, what that would look like in terms of whether it would be more efficient or would cost less, I don't know. I guess that depends on what we expect for services. You know, whether they would be a full-time employee, whether they're a part-time employee, all of those things would affect it. But looking at the 2025 estimate from the PRRD of $46,000, I would really doubt that we would be able to have our own building inspector for $46,000 a year.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. What do you think, Councilor Clickash? You think you can do it for us? Get your inspection permit back, and
You would have to.
No, I'm teasing. Yeah,
Different process.
we definitely can, if we can't do that. But I mean, this is a reasonable cost. Like, I assume if we had to pay somebody for that, yeah, it'd be a bit more, especially if it's to pay for their recertification and all that stuff.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, gonna call the question, all in favor? Motion carries. Schedule of meetings. Anything from council? Not clarified or not 100% probably know more at the, I'm going to say the January 20th meeting, but there may be an issue with the 18th. I'm not sure about the 19th. There may be an issue with those two meetings. I'll have to confirm that and get back to council, but we might need to move those meetings, February, the 18th and the 19th. That's why I asked about the budget meeting. I think there might be some concerns with those two dates. Councillor Noxana?
Are we canceling tomorrow's budget meeting as well?
Yeah, we'll have to put a motion on the floor.
Motioning that we cancel tomorrow's budget meeting?
Okay, seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. And I know the new schedule is not updated on here for the budgets, but I know in February, there may be the 18th. I might have to bring it forward at the January 20th meeting to look at canceling that, but I'll confirm that with Ms. Scott. Okay, anything else from council in regards to scheduling meetings? Okay, any notice of motions from council? Okay, Councillor Business, thanks Councillor Dussault for your report from the museum. I know there's other ones sent out in the emails, that obviously didn't make it in time for our agenda. They'll be just added to the next one. Any councillor business from the floor? Oh, everybody was quiet. Want to take an opportunity to apologize to staff at the last meeting in December where myself and as a representative of council forgot to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's. So I'll do it now. Yeah, so apologizes for that, but it was Merry Christmas to you guys as well, and Happy New Year's, and a great 2025 is my hopes are. I want to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Dussault, Councillor Norbury, and Councillor Noxana for attending the Sledding with Santa in the Geo Park. I think well done. Thanks staff for last minute preparation of the district vehicle with getting it, lights on it. I know we did say last year that we would do it ourselves, but I think the certain dates, I think it's very tough on some of us, so some were just getting back into the community. But also the staff for the last minute request of the side-by-side. Greatly appreciate that. So if we could just pass on the thank you to the staff member that did do the decorating of our vehicle. One of your employees would be great. I know who it is, but I prefer that you to thank him for us on our behalf, because without the individual decorating the dyno machine, we wouldn't have lights on it. And then I heard the lights flickered out halfway through the trip anyways, but next year it'll be fixed. I don't know who. The lights, there's a plug in the back, somebody stepped on it. Okay, anything else from council's business side? Okay. Any questions and answers, or questions from emails, Ms. Scott?
Just have a quick look. No.
Okay, thank you. Resolution to close, recommendation, please. Councillor Norbury.
That the January 6th, 2025 regular council meeting be closed to the public according to section 91C, G, and J of the Community Charter to permit discussions about C, labor relations or other employee relations, G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality, and J, information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Seconder. Councillor Dussault, all in favor? Carried. 5-minute recess.